When I was a kid back in the 60s, there were really 4 good choices for women for professions. One was nurse, one was teacher, one was mother, and one was secretary. I cannot stand the sight of blood, can't type well to save my life, was nowhere near ready to be mother, so that left teaching. And I thought, yeah, I can do this. And I've always loved English and writing, so I thought, yeah, I can do that. And I was really lucky because there were jobs available, which was not always the case. When I graduated in 1970, I got a job before graduation. It was with the Pittsburgh City Schools, where I taught for 22 years. And then I took a stab and applied for a job here, and I got it, which astonished me. I was 44 years old with 22 years of experience, so they had to pay me more than they would have to pay somebody straight out of school. But they took me, and I learned a lot here, a whole lot here, because I would tell people that the terrible thing is that the kids did all their work, because I had to grade it all, but the wonderful thing is that the kids did all their work. So I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to be a teacher, and the longer I taught, and even now that I'm out of the classroom for 17 years, I've never for 1 minute regretted the decision, never.
When you were a student, who was your favorite teacher and what made them special?
Without a doubt, her name was Marcia Lou Bell, and I had her at Peabody High School in 10th grade. And she's the reason I became an English teacher. She had us do all kinds of inventive things that nobody ever thought about thinking about. We always had to do an art project that had to do with what we were reading. And when we read Julius Caesar, I wrote a folk song about Caesar not listening to Calpurnia and going to the Senate anyhow. I still know that song. I'm not going to sing it for you, but I still know every word of that song. And I thought, this is so much fun. If I can get paid to do this, this is what I want to. Never math. Never math. You would never ask me to teach your child math or science. But I love history and I love English. So I went with English because I'm a writer. I've been a writer my whole life. So it was a good choice. It was.
Share your teaching experience. What grades or subjects did you teach, where, and how long?
I started teaching in 1970. I taught in the Pittsburgh high schools, and I taught at Westinghouse, and I taught 7th grade and 8th grade. And then the next year I taught 7th, 8th, and 9th. And by the end of my 3rd year, God was good to me, and I got a transfer to Langley High School, where I taught for 19 years, and I taught 9th, 10th, and 11th grade English. I never taught seniors, and that was fine. Seniors are sure they know everything. I mean, that's just the way it is. And they would look down, I thought they looked down on the teachers, so I said, I don't want seniors. So they gave me 9th grade. I learned, sometimes you can learn more from what you did wrong than from what you did right. I did a lot of stuff wrong, and I learned a lot of stuff. And everything that I did taught me something. And when you keep your eyes and ears open, if you're lucky enough to have a long career in teaching, if you keep your eyes and ears open and your mouth shut, that was for me the hard part, you're always learning, always. If you're not learning and you're teaching, you're not teaching right.
Tell me about your favorite lesson, unit, or activity that you enjoyed teaching every year.
I wouldn't say enjoyed. I would say it impacted me the most of anything I ever taught, ever. I taught a unit on the Holocaust to support the Diary of Anne Frank, because I taught 8th grade. And because of the depth that we went into in studying the background, not just the play itself, which is a beautifully written play, but all the background, because you can't really understand Anne Frank if you don't know about the Holocaust. Just like one parent one year accused me of only teaching the Holocaust because I'm Jewish. I said, well, no, I teach the Holocaust to support the play, just like I taught Elizabethan England when I taught Shakespeare. That shut her up. It did. It impacted me because it so impacted them. I don't know if anybody here knows Parker Snyder, but he had a younger brother who unfortunately passed named Lance. When he went to Poland on a student trip, years after I taught him, they give you a yellow glass candle. When he got home, he sent me that candle. He said, I wouldn't even know about this if it weren't for you. I still have that candle. It made it through 3 moves, because that's the beauty of teaching, is knowing that you did something or said something or made something happen that stayed with a kid. Absolutely.
What is the funniest or most entertaining moment you remember from your years in the classroom?
Oh my God. I was just telling Mr. Devlin about I used to have, this is when I was in the city, I had the kids do demonstration speeches, and this one kid brought in his tuba. That is a really big instrument. And while he was demonstrating it and showing its parts, you know what a spit valve is? He turned it over and the spit valve opened. That was, so, yeah, it was so ugly. And I just went, oh, and I have a very weak stomach, and I thought, I'm not going to throw up. That will not go well. And I just went, oh, so that's what's in there. And he was so embarrassed. I said, don't worry about it. Just clean it up, you know? That was one of the funniest ones. And one time I was standing in the front of the row collecting papers, and I honest to God said this. I said to the kids, okay, piss up your papers. And they looked at each other like, should we laugh? Will she get mad? And I said, okay, I know what I said, and you know what I said. So we'll take 1 full minute, and we'll laugh our faces off, and then we'll go back to the lesson, which is exactly what we did. If I ignored it, it wouldn't go away. They'd be giggling under their breath or, you know, whatever. So that's one of the things I've learned about teaching. You got to be real. You got to be who you are. If you try to pretend that you're somebody you're not, the first people who will catch you are the kids, and they will make your life miserable. Nobody likes a phony, and nobody likes a phony less than teenagers. So I thought, I got nothing to hide. I know a lot of stuff, I do, but I also do really stupid stuff sometimes. So they're going to see it all. Yeah, the spit valve is definitely the funniest, definitely.
During your time as a teacher, what was the biggest change that you witnessed in the profession?
Oh, the testing. Absolute. The testing actually encouraged me to think about retiring. It was pushing out units that I had spent a long time developing because I had to do all this test prep. And that was the biggest change. And I had a lot of freedom here that I know my buddies in the Pittsburgh system didn't have. This district I was at Dorseyville. I never taught at the high school. I was at Dorseyville. And this district trusted me to do the right thing. I followed the curriculum, I did. But I don't know if I should tell you this. What are they going to do, fire me? I never once followed a teacher's manual. Never once. I would put them away. I wanted to throw them away, but I know better. And I know that sounds snotty, and I don't care. But teachers' manuals tell you, first you do this, and then you do this. And you know what? I knew what to do, because by the time I got here, I already had 22 years of experience. I had made pretty much all the mistakes I was going to make.
And how have advances in technology such as the internet and smartphones impacted teaching during your career and in your view?
Oh, hugely, hugely. The first time I was in a workshop in the computer lab, an after-school workshop, and I could just find an article that was exactly what I needed, print it out and give it to the kids, I thought, I'm in heaven. And it expanded my resources tremendously. Because textbooks, well, English textbooks are pretty much current because, nothing's been written about Shakespeare for hundreds of years. But it gave different perspectives on stuff that even I didn't know about. And we won't talk about cell phones. I had them, and I was right at the beginning of the cell phone craze. I had them leave their cell phones in a basket as they came in, and they'd get them on the way out. Never once did I have a kid say to me, I don't want to do that, because I would just look at him and say, okay, then you can't come in. And at that point, it scared them. It did. I'm little, but I have a big mouth, so it works. It works.
Okay, share with me one of your classroom management strategies or tips.
Call on the worst kid in the room. That was told to me by a wonderful, experienced teacher. And it doesn't take you long to figure out who the worst kid in the room is. And he's usually a leader because there's something enticing about a bad kid. Give that kid responsibilities, because then you have him on your side and everybody's going, she asked him to do that? What's wrong with her? They're not saying it out loud, but it's in their head. And that works really well for getting the kid on your side. And that's a big part of teaching, is getting the kids to want what you want. And I also always let the kids choose where they made their own groups. We did a lot of group projects, and I know a lot of teachers assign kids to groups. I didn't do that because when I was a kid, I always got stuck with all the kids who didn't do anything. So guess who did it all? I never assigned kids to groups. I think the biggest thing is that I treated them with respect, because I'm a big believer in the golden rule. And I thought, yeah, I'm older. Yeah, I have more power than they do, which isn't hard when you're a student. You have no power. And anybody who tells you that you do is wrong, but you do have the power over your own actions. And one time, I remember this vividly, one time an 8th grader said to me, I hate you. And I thought, there are lots of things I could do right now. I just looked at him and said, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, because I don't hate you. And he just broke down in tears. And all I did was tell the truth. I didn't hate this kid, and I knew there was something boiling up in him that needed to come out, and here I was. So I was the unwitting victim. It's honesty. Just be honest with the kids and don't put on a front. Don't be a phony. And when I first started teaching, I didn't have the courage to do that. I was 22 years old, very young, totally inexperienced. So I thought, I'm going to die here. It's just going to be. But I had loans to pay, and I could pay off my loans by teaching. So I thought, I got to do this. I just got to do this. So I did. That pretty much, and be prepared. Be prepared. Don't pretend to know something you don't know.
You've spent decades working with young people. What did you learn from the students you worked with?
I won't be hyperbolic and say I've learned something from every kid I ever taught. I might have, but I remember specific lessons I learned from kids in the city particularly, who had incredibly hard lives, and they came to school every single day ready to work. And I thought, if they can do that, they can do anything. So what I learned from my students, I think, was to capitalize on what they brought in with them. make them proud of who they are. Self-esteem is a big, big, big issue with all teenagers, all people. I learned lots. I learned about the physics of a hole-in-one from one of my students. And I've learned things about countries I will never get to visit because they already have. The Hermitage is a phenomenal museum in Russia. And I was starting to tell the kids about it, and one kid raised his hand and said, I was there. I thought, I know where I am. I'm in Fox Chapel. This could be true. So, because it's in Russia. So I said, well, would you come up and tell us about it? Number one, I made a super big friend that day. He was kind of on the edge. And number two, I got to learn about the Hermitage. Don't be so full of yourself that you can't learn from your kids. They're younger than you are, that's true, but that doesn't mean they know less. They know different things than you do.
Can you discuss your teaching philosophy and how it guided your approach to education?
My teaching philosophy pretty much ties in with my classroom management stuff. First of all, know your stuff. Don't try to teach something you know precious little about. And if you don't know enough, at least stay ahead of the kids. Read the night before and get caught up. Know your stuff. That's very, very important. Number two, know about classroom management. And classroom management is not controlling kids. It is managing what the classroom looks like. That's the most valuable class I ever took in college, ever. And it's where you put things and how you seat kids. That's where I learned I didn't want the rows thing because then the whole focus is on me. And that's not a good idea. So I did 2 circles, an inner circle and an outer circle. And that way they had somebody to look at besides me. And it also gave a better advantage to shorter kids because I could put shorter kids where they have a much easier time of seeing. And I just think it's equality, The thing I was never good at is getting papers back to them in a timely manner. I'm an English teacher who believes very much in writing, and I was never caught up. So that's my single biggest regret about my career, is that I never quite got the swing of getting things back in a timely manner. So that's it. That's my philosophy.
And what do you think are the most important qualities of a great educator?
Oh, wow. Humility, courage, and as my 5-year-old granddaughter said, brave is being afraid and doing it anyhow. Out of a 5-year-old, geez, Louise. Have pride in your profession. I can't stand when people say, I'm just a teacher. What? I like the word educator, I really do. I especially like the term professional educator because this is not a free society for teachers. Don't have a thin skin because sometimes kids will try to get your goat and they shouldn't get your goat. And don't ever think kids can't be rude just because you're an adult. You gotta, and some people disagree with this, but I don't. You gotta earn their respect. And here's how you earn respect. You earn respect by respecting them. I don't think anybody, I had an argument with somebody about this. I don't think anybody is entitled to respect. So, and I won't bring up any politics because somebody will knock me over. You earn that respect by being respectful. So I think that's important. And I never thought of the money at all. I never did. When I first started teaching in 1970, my take-home pay before taxes and all the deductions was $7,600. That's it. So when people tell you teacher, it's way higher now. I retired at way higher than that. And there's a really good meme on Facebook. Teachers don't teach for the income, they teach for the outcome. Sounds cutesy, but it's true. Don't tell people that you get a summer vacation, because you don't. Good teachers work all summer getting stuff ready for the next year. And take advantage of every professional opportunity you are offered. There are wonderful professional opportunities available where you can talk with other teachers and make your teaching better.
So, what was the most challenging part of being a teacher?
Balancing my time. When I had been teaching 10 years, I had my first child, and I took off a semester of maternity leave. And then 3.5 years later, I had my second child and took off a year. I was always wondering if I was cheating my profession or cheating my children. Time management is horrific. I've never known a teacher who says she does it well, because we all know we mess up. And guilt is a very, very bad emotion. Don't let yourself be guilty. Neither of my children has ever been in jail. They have never committed a crime that I know of. My daughter always says, that you know of, Mom. And they're good human beings. So my husband and I did things right. We did, but time management was so hard. So sometimes you had to say no to one so you could say yes to the other, and knowing which one to say yes to is often very hard, very hard.
What was the most rewarding part of being a teacher?
Oh, kids. Kids, by far kids. My one daughter says to me, Mom, you love teaching because you never really grew up. I said, yeah, you're right. You're right. I love listening to new ideas. I love connecting with kids. I love the fact that I have dozens and dozens and dozens of former students as Facebook friends, and I get to connect with them there. I love the fact that kids give me a different way to look at things, because sometimes adults, and it used to be me too, think that we're right, and we have the only intelligent perspective known to mankind, and that's not true. So for me, it's a combination of the kids and the stuff I've been so privileged to teach. I once said in the classroom, I love this book. And one kid said, you love every book you read. I said, well, yeah, I think you're right. And I've always been blessed to have good stuff to teach and to have the resources to teach them. I never had a book shortage. And this is a good district to teach in. It is. I never had a lack of resources here. And in the middle school, I don't know if you know this, I taught 4 classes, 1 grade level, which is, in my last year in this city, I taught 5 classes and 3 preps. Invariably, somebody got somebody else's lesson, because I couldn't do 3 every day. But that kind of attention to teachers' needs is important, and I got to teach with the best team of teachers. Do you remember your team from middle school? The best team of teachers I have ever known in my life, and we constructed these units that were astonishing. So it was the kids. It was the kids.
If you could give one piece of advice to parents and the general public about the importance of teachers and education, what would it be?
Pay attention to us and respect us. Not everybody can teach. And I have seen people in classrooms who should not be there. Teaching sometimes is misinterpreted as easy. That's a crock. I won't finish the sentence. It's the hardest job I've ever done. It's just incredibly hard. And if you're not willing to give that kind of respect to teachers, then you go do my job. You wouldn't last 20 minutes. And I say that with great knowledge of it being true. I mean, teaching has been maligned many, many, many times. And don't call me a public servant. I am nobody's. That's what teachers used to be called, public servants. Not me. I am nobody's servant. First of all, I'm paid. Servants are not paid. Respect us. As somebody once said, nobody would know how to do anything without teachers. Your doctor couldn't treat you if somebody hadn't taught him how to do it. That's the biggest thing, the biggest gripe I have with the general public. You know, I deserve as much respect as a doctor, as a nurse, as any other professional. So give it to me. That's what I would tell them. And I do tell them.
What advice would you offer a first-year teacher?
Oh my God. Don't be afraid, because it's pretty scary. The first time you're facing a bunch of kids you never met before. It's scary. And be careful who you listen to on how to do things. The most experienced teacher might be your worst bet. Because, like, I had a French teacher in high school whose notes were yellow with age. You know, the Pad F. I called it wood chunk paper because that's what it looked like. Don't trust always the older teacher over the younger, because younger teachers very often have newer ideas that kids will buy into. And don't be afraid to have fun. I developed this one activity for teaching vocabulary. Teaching vocabulary words in isolation is a very poor way to teach it, but I at least made it fun. There were 10 words a week, and I divide them into 5 groups, and each group would get 2 words, and then the group had to act out the word, and the rest of the kids had to guess what the word was. If it was a group of boys, invariably they wound up fighting on the floor, even if the word was like pacifism. They had so much fun, and they remembered the words. Oh, I know that word. That's where Billy punched Susie. You know, so there's nothing wrong with having fun, but it can't be the main focus. There's got to be learning involved, because you know if they're having a whole lot of fun not learning anything, you know who's going to walk in, don't you? The principal. And you don't want that to happen, believe me. Yeah, don't be afraid. Try new ideas, and don't be afraid of failing, because you will fail. I've lost count of how many times I've failed, because that's how you learn what to do. If you only go with what works, how do you know what works anyway? And if somebody else tells you it works for them, there's a good chance it won't work for you. Be brave. Be brave.
And what would you like to say to your former students who are watching?
I miss you. And when I see these faces that I know, except they now are bald and have mustaches or gray hair and grandchildren, I miss who they were, and I miss the roughest kids. One kid, Johnny was his first name, I do not remember. He gave me so much trouble. And he taught me the most about how much patience I really can have. And of course, when he was the worst, who was in my room? The principal. And I thought, this observation is going to go down the toilet so fast. And it did. It went down the toilet. And afterward, I said, Mr. Chiappetta, I did not do what I needed to do in this classroom. I would like you to come back on another day, same class, because I will do it differently, I promise you. And he had faith in me. And he came back like a week later, and I knew what I wanted to do with this one kid. And what I did was honor a response of his. I know this sounds creepy and otherworldly, but it's true. He said, for once he said something that made sense and wasn't a smart aleck remark. And I said, that's a really good response, Johnny. Thank you for that. The kid was golden the rest of the day, the rest of the month, the rest of the year. And my principal showed me that the original, and I read the original write-up, which was terrible. I would never have hired me. And then he showed me the new one. And one of the things he said was she showed respect for a kid who was really tough. You got to do that, but I couldn't have done it okay the second time if I hadn't screwed it up the first time. So make mistakes. As long as nobody fires you, you're doing pretty well. I sometimes feel very, very sorry for kids going into the profession now because there's so much animosity against teachers now. And with all this right-wing stuff, if you can't teach that and you can't do that, I don't know if I'd have the kind of strength. I was so young when I was 22. That's a baby. That I really didn't know what I was getting into because all my teachers would come in and sit down and say, oh, please teach me. Not really, but it wasn't that way anymore. My student teacher one year said, she was crying, I thought when I stood up to talk, they'd all be quiet, and they didn't. I said, you're right, because you didn't give them a reason to be quiet. And so she didn't like that response, but then we talked about what the reasons can be. So tell them something they don't know already. So, which is pretty much a lot. Really is a lot. Anything else you want to know?
No, is there anything else you'd like to say?
This was a privilege and a wonderful opportunity. I am very glad to have been invited because I just, I could talk for another hour, but I won't because I have to get home and you have a life. But thinking back, and I really started thinking a lot after Ryan sent me the questions, which are very good questions, because a focused discussion is a really good idea. Because otherwise, blah, 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 blah. And this is my profession is too important to me. I'm still teaching. I don't get paid for it, but I'm teaching. And I wanted this to be meaningful. And if you leave somebody like me to just talk, oh my God, you'd learn about my dog, my grandchildren, all kinds of stuff you don't need to know. So I am very honored to have had this opportunity, and I'm glad that we could make it work. Thank all of you. You guys are doing good stuff, and you got the best school district in the country to do it in. So go forth and prosper.